Pardon me while I have a strange interlude. There is nothing else. Life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on the omnibus of art. Along the misty corridors of time, and in those corridors I see figures, strange figures.
Welcome back, my friends, to the AP Strange Show. I'm your host, AP Strange. This is my show, and today's show is brought to you by Ambrosia brand Supernatural Donuts. If you want to share a donut with a supernatural entity, this is the brand for you because it's perfectly safe for all supernatural entities. It doesn't contain any ingredients that might harm them. So whether you want to have a Boston cream donut with a Dover demon or a strawberry frosted with the Mothman, or maybe gnaw on a cruller with a Hopkins goblin, all of the flavors are there, and all of the supernatural entities that you might want to share it with will be safe. So check out Ambrosia brand Supernatural Donuts. And tonight on the show, I'm having a nice munch on a donut with a wonderful man, a creative person, a creative weirdo, the creative weirdo, as a matter of fact. He's a cartoonist, a musician, a creative guy, zine maker, a taste maker, even, I would say. He's a wonderful, positive force out there in the paranormal world. Todd Purse, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, AP. That was too kind. Thank you for having me. So, what's your current favorite donut?
My current favorite, well, I was on a stick bender for a while. I kept getting the
Yes.
sticks, like
Like
jelly sticks.
maple log or okay, jelly? Yeah, yeah,
The jelly
totally.
stick, yeah. I like
That's
the just glazed ones too,
mm,
Um,
absolutely,
but
absolutely.
I've been coming back to the round donut. There's just something great about the circular donut,
You
uh,
can't go wrong. I mean, any kind of donut is gonna do it for me. I'll tell you. I've been really into this so it's a blueberry fruit donut that's glazed and has a blueberry icing on top from a local
oh
donut
man.
place. That's so good. Like all the fruit, and sugar. It's the best. My kids love there's a local donut shop called Sleeping Bird, and their logo is like a donut with two bird feet sticking out of it, like kind of like a dead bird. So my
Oh
4-year-old
nice.
just calls it dead bird donuts, and she's like, Dad, can we go get those dead bird donuts again? I'm like, yes we can, you got it, babe.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, I don't know about the fruit, but the jelly stick has purple in it, and that's a fruit.
That's
So
fruit, 100%. Purple and pink are top two fruits in my book.
good stuff. Good stuff. Um, yeah, and you do include a fair amount of donuts in your art, which is
I
like
do.
I was following you before you did that, and then when I saw that, I'm like, oh man, this is my kind of guy. He's got donuts and flying saucers. I remember seeing the donut and flying saucer cartoon at one point. It was like a donut as a UFO, I think. And
Absolutely.
I was like, man, I need that as a tattoo, I think.
I love it. Those are two passions that were reignited by having kids and getting back into both sweet treats and fun weird things.
Right, right. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So for listeners that may not have encountered you before, you post like a lot of this stuff daily on Instagram, and it is fantastic. But you also do prints and zines
Yeah.
that get sent out, and you do parts of the Illuminatus adaptation that I talked about with Bobby Campbell. If listeners remember that show, if you don't, go back and listen to it because it was a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
but yeah, um, I did kind of want to talk a little bit about the creative journey for you, like how you got going with drawing and stuff like that, and what your
Totally.
influences were in the comics world.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, dude. I've been thinking about that a lot recently, having my 8-year-old getting more into reading comics and drawing comics. And I'm like, I think that was the time for me. I think that was like
yeah,
Simpsons hit real big around then. And that was like, I wasn't a big comic book kid. Like, I didn't really, there wasn't a comic book shop around me. And I missed the spinner rack days. Like, I didn't have like I was a suburban kid. There wasn't like I mean, I guess there was a Wawa in walking distance eventually, but they never sold comics at Wawa. So I
yeah.
kind of my main exposure to cartooning and cartoons was like The Simpsons and Looney Tunes growing up, and then like Tiny Toon Adventures, Batman the animated series was probably my first introduction to something like Batman and the superheroes. And I was always really into Calvin and Hobbes, and probably the most bought comics for me growing up were Garfield collections from the Scholastic Book Fair. Like I was really into, but Calvin and Hobbes and the Garfield collections, and then eventually there was oh man, it wasn't the Scholastic Book Fair, but it was like you could order books. And they would come to your room. Did you have this where you could fill out the sheet? They'd give you a little
Hmm.
like magazine. You circle the books you want. You pay for them, and they got shipped to your
Yeah.
classroom, right? So there was a Matt Groening collection of his early cartoons that you could order from there, and I ordered that, and I can't remember what it was called. It wasn't From Hell, but it
Oh,
was one
okay.
of those. It was one of the from. It was either like Akbar and what's that one? Ah, man, I'm not gonna remember the name
I
now. It's been
remember
so.
Life is Hell. It was like the one-eared bunny. Yeah,
Totally. So he had
yeah,
a whole series of those, and they were in these like 8.5 by 11 white collections. And there was one of them that wasn't Life as Hell, but it was like the same style of cartoons from him. And I ordered that, and that was the first time I made a connection where I was like, wait, this is the dude that made The Simpsons, and his drawing style kind of looks, oh, that was a guy and his idea, and like kind of put it all together. Like, because when you're watching something like The Simpsons, you just figure, like, how do you do that? You can't do that. So that's when I was
yeah,
like, oh, this is something people do. And that was like the first time I remember trying to like make my own comic strip and really trying to like draw my own comics. And at that point, I had my first. I guess artistic success was like fire prevention poster contests. I won those like 4 years in a row and felt like the hot shit in like second to fourth grade because I could draw these like fire prevent. Honestly, like that was like my earliest memory of like what encouraged me to think I could draw or like be that like the kid in the class like that, and that was it, honestly. And so I was always into drawing, and then I found those like or very early comic strips and stuff, and that was the first time where I was like, this is something I could do and figure out. So that's kind of
yeah,
like and then I really didn't get into reading like floppy comics or underground comics or any of that until high school, and when I started hanging out with people that were very, I got into comics like in a really cool time because one, there was this like melding of or meshing of the underground alternative comic scene and the mainstream comic scene. So you had people like Jim Mahfood and Peter Bagg and these like really weird artists doing like Spider-Man one shots or doing these
yeah,
Marvel like big books because there were certain editors that were giving these guys chances. So like one of the first Spider-Man comics I ever bought was this one that's a Peter Bagg variant, and the cover is Spider-Man shooting himself in the face in this like ridiculously cartoony style, and it's a like
yeah,
to this day, it's like one of the things that's ingrained in my brain more than ever. And I'm like, how is this a thing? And that's what got me into reading like Marvel and stuff because they were like, there's a millions of things that you can like if you want to read Spider-Man, you can do it in a million different ways depending on how you want to do it at this point. So like look at this stuff and see what you react to. And that was the stuff I reacted to. It was the really weird like underground stuff that was breaking through into the like bigger culture and whatnot. And that was in the like early 2000s. And then I found like Chris Ware and Daniel Clowes and those kind of traditional, like really high. I don't want to say highbrow comic artists, but the people that made comics fit in bookstores and like made
yeah,
the New Yorker write about comics and stuff like that. You know, those things.
yeah. When they became sort of elevated, there was a
Yeah,
point where that happened with a few of them. Just like Mouse and
yeah.
yeah, like yeah. But that was a wild time. Like a little bit prior to that was. I was in the comic book store, and a lot of those alternative titles were just hitting the racks, and it was like Spawn, like all the Image
Yeah,
comics, the Max, sometimes you'd find something that was by some weird press that doesn't you'd never heard of, and it would
totally.
go 2 or 3 issues and then fold. So
Yeah.
you'd never get to know what happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
was kind of cool.
I lived through all of that, but that was the time that I was so like the from the 80s black and white boom that produced. I mean, it's so funny because I was brought up on the media that it produced, right? Like I never read a Ninja Turtles comic book in any kind of relevant time to when they came out in the 80s, but I was 100% there for the movies and the cartoon show and the Pizza Hut promotion and the
Yeah,
VHSs you got from Pizza Hut and like that was and like and then one of my I just told my 8-year-old asked me what my first memory ever was, and I was like really trying, and I'm like, man, what is my first ever memory? And it finally came to me, and it was my preschool graduation because so the preschool graduation we sang a choreographed "You Drive Me Crazy." Do you remember that song? The "You
yeah,
Drive Me Crazy," and we did hand motions and everything, right? And I
uh,
remember that so vividly as being like some like my first time performing in front of people and feeling really weird about it. But then afterwards, my Nana gave me the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sword set, the sword like where you could pour the ooze down and it was like the
oh
biggest
yeah,
toy I'd ever gotten, and like so that's like my first. So I was a Turtles kid, 100%, but never read the comics, and like and that was such a trend. So I didn't know that that was based on like underground comics until high school again, and that the comics are like kind of more adult and more violent, and like they started this giant boom and made like 30 different publishers that all folded like 5 months after, which led to
yeah,
that 90s like speculator boom. And again, like this is another perfect example of it where I loved Spawn growing up, but mainly because of the HBO show and the
yeah,
movie
yeah,
and not the comic until much later. Like I knew it was a comic, I had seen the comic, but like it just didn't, it never, I missed the boom of it in the 90s. Like I missed that whole Image era and them leaving Marvel and all of that, the
mm,
speculator boom. Like I missed that, but I love the stuff that it produced in the overculture. But then it took me again until that like early 2000s to go back. So it's so funny how that works. Like I love those currents of culture that are produced by other things that people don't even know that that's where it came from. And then you're like, "Oh,
right,
that's where that thing came from." Weird.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's how I felt about the Max, because the Max had that
Mm,
like MTV series that they made of it. And if you watch it now, I feel like it's really dated. It feels like a very 90s thing. But it followed the comic book like really closely. So me and my friends like went out and bought all those. Like I still have them somewhere.
that's
Um,
awesome.
but I mean, even then, I was picking up on little references because you could tell Sam Keith was like a Frank Zappa fan, because there'd be like
100%.
little references to Zappa in it, and you're like, oh,
Yes.
okay.
No, and
I know what this is.
that's like
Yeah,
what got me and hooked me about comics, honestly, was like seeing people put like very personal touches in these stories and like seeing like especially when you get into the underground comics where it's or like not even just the underground comics or the alternative comics, but the comics where it's just one person. A lot of the times when it's like one artist writer and it's a singular voice, there's so few mediums that are as powerful and just take one person to produce the whole thing. Like if it's
yeah,
music and even if it's a solo artist, you're still usually having someone else record it and mix it and master it, and someone else is getting their fingerprints in there, right? With the
yeah,
comics, and especially if it's like a black and white writer artist, it's from the pen to the page, scanned and printed. Like it is as
yeah,
direct as an experience as like you can get of a one voice. And so that makes it like a big gamble, right? Like that makes it so like if you're gonna you kind of you're putting yourself out there and like you kind of are like this is it, like this is what I got. And like I think there's almost nothing more noble than someone who sits down and spends way too many hours at a drawing table to make a
yeah,
comic and put it out in the world. I feel like everyone should do it just for the experience and like just because not even to come away with something that you're like proud of, just to do it and be like, man, this is hard, but kind of fun. Because that's the weird dichotomy. It's very hard, but it's also really fun.
yeah. I mean, even just plotting out the page to make sure that the panels are gonna like work in some way, like you really have to plan that ahead. You
Yeah.
can't just go willy nilly with it. And I mean,
Mhm.
I used to make my own little comics when I was younger, and it was really when I discovered the guitar, or more specifically when I discovered that I wasn't shunned when I played guitar like I was when I was doodling cartoons in the corner. Uh,
That is very
the
true.
cartooning fell by the wayside, but
Yes.
I've always kind of still done it, but that was always difficult for me, was trying to like, I wasn't great at like plotting out how to do the panels and how to tell the story in a linear way. I
Yes.
was better at just making up characters and drawing them, you know. So
Totally.
yeah,
I'm still it's the hard like I have two ways I like to make comics. All right, I guess actually three now that I think about it more. But the two ways I usually like to do is I have one story that is very plotted and is I'm trying to have it be linear and make sense and have payoffs. Like I feel like, comics are one of those things where if each page turn doesn't have a payoff, then every other page turn has to have a payoff. Like you have to
yeah,
really give people something to keep them moving throughout it. And I try to have a comic that's good at that, and that's really hard. So what I do while I'm working on that comic is have several other comics where I'm like, this is just gonna, I'm not penciling anything. I'm just dipping the pen into the ink and drawing whatever comes out, and then I'm gonna put words over top of it. And those comics are so much fun, and sometimes they come out awesome, and I print them and share them, and sometimes they're absolute garbage, and no one sees them, and they live in a stack next to my drawing table. Like I have this stack right here that is that. These are all just like straight pen and ink, and these are kind of like my journal comics where like, oh, it's this one. This one's all about like how it's hard making money and being an artist, and that's like the most cliche shit in the world, but like
right,
something I feel a lot because I support a family off of a creative life, and sometimes there's some conflicting emotions and stuff that may be cliche, but they feel really good to get down, and that's the way I know to get them down. So whether anybody ever sees that or not, who knows? But I make them all the time because the other ones are really hard, and I might be able to produce like two of those a year, two of the big linear ones that so my
yeah,
one that I'm working on now is Dreamscapes, and it's about like essentially when I had alopecia as a kid. Before I knew I had alopecia, I still have alopecia, but when my alopecia first started acting up and I started losing hair, I started having these weird sea monster dreams at the same time, and I never
mm,
thought anything about it, right? Like it was just something. The reason I remember it so well, and I go into this into the comic, is because part of getting treated for alopecia was going to talk therapy for the first time because it's an autoimmune disorder. Your immune system attacks your hair shit for some reason because it's broken, and stress is supposed to be a big part of that. So the treatment was steroid injections and talk therapy. So I used to every month I would get a giant needle right above my eye because I lost like all of this stuff here, and like I still am very hairless because of it. But so I would get this giant needle above my eye in the back of my head, and I would go to talk therapy. And I remember talking to her about this like sea monster dream that I kept having. Like I was on my uncle's boat, and it got flipped over by a giant sea monster, and I was laughing the whole time. And I just remember being like, I just remember she's like, draw it out. Like, can you draw it for me? And I did it, and that was all we ever talked about. And I think the only reason I remember it so well is because I drew it, and I was like, okay, that's in my brain forever.
mhm,
Never thought about it until a little into like 2021. I lost all my hair again for the first time since that first issue where like my alopecia came back really strong, lost all of my hair and like completely. It was really shocking because I have a lot of hair and people know me as somebody who has a lot of hair. So
right,
like everyone I met was like, "Are you cancer? Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, it's cool. Alopecia."
right,
Like I got the blood work done. It's just the alopecia again and whatnot. And I was like, thinking about because I went to the dermatologist and essentially they're like, there's no progressed science on this. You can get steroid injections if you want your hair to grow back. They still think it's stress. Maybe you should talk to somebody again. And I was like, oh yeah. So I was like, oh, I'm going to sign up and talk, get therapy going again and do that whole thing. That's probably good regardless, right? So I do that.
yeah,
And then that night that I signed up for therapy, I fell asleep, sea monster dream right then. And I was like, damn, why does that feel so
wow,
real? And like, why do I remember that, right? And so 2020 was also the time that like, very stressful for everybody. And I feel like everybody's dreams were probably a little fucked up and weird and like,
yeah,
lots of things going on in the dream world as well as the physical world, right? But I made a note of it and I was like, that's really weird. So I went to start, doing the therapy thing and whatnot. And my hair came back and everything and I don't know. probably a year ago or so, I had another bout where it started falling out, and sea monster dream again. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, really? Like, this is how. So
Mm.
I was like, all right, I'm gonna start dream journaling and like going the Eric Wargo route, and like, really trying to do it, systematically and look back at it every week. And I was like, damn, I have these sea monster dreams a lot, I think. And then like, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna. This seems like a comic. This seems like something that I can write about, and like, it allowed me to intertwine and be able to be like, okay, here's it starting with me having alopecia as a kid and work up through the modern day, tell stories about my dream experiences, and then mix in other precognitive dream experiences that other people have, or weird dream discoveries. And like, kind of like like the first issue covers a lot of Salvador Dali's dream work, and the first time that
Mm.
Dali and Freud met, I cover their whole interaction intermixed with my kind of autobio, like weird dream shit. So that's like my big linear project that I'm working on right now, that I have like 98 pages of like 200 done or so, but that's going to be a long
Wow.
time. So in between all of
Yeah.
that, I'm working on these other small fun things that I can do really quick.
Well, I mean, that sounds awesome. But so in these dreams, is it like scary in the dream? You said you were laughing when it
No, never
happens.
scary, never wake up in a panic, never remember them. Like, that's the thing. Like, I really, like, except
Wow.
for those first ones. So, and like, I smoke a lot of weed, so like my dream recall is not great as in general, right? Like,
Yeah.
just to put that one out there. Um but like, it is like, once I had that third like occurrence where I remembered the sea monster dream, when like about a year and a half ago or so, and I started dream journaling, now I recall them. I didn't change my weed consumption, but I recall my dreams a lot better. So like, dream journaling, I think, does battle that somehow, which is really interesting. But no, never scary, and never do I like wake up from them. Never are they like, it's one of those things that I have to like definitely recall, and without the like weird connection of the hair thing, I don't think I would have
Mhm.
ever I don't think it would have ever buzzed me or anything. So it's just weird
Yeah.
that it pops up in that like I don't know if it's like my stress thing that comes up, like comfort stress dream or weirdness. That's just like sea monster flipping over my. I had a neighbor
Right.
who had a speedboat that we used to go out on at the beach, and that's the boat I was on. Like, and it's so funny because I do remember when I was young and had nightmares, my parents used to be like, if you have a bad dream, just like close your eyes and think about something you really like when you're out on your Uncle Ray's boat. And it's so funny that that's like the thing
Yeah.
that like did it, Like, it's like, oh, you put
Huh.
that in there somehow. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So do you get to see the monster at all, or do you not remember?
No, no, no. It's
Oh,
it's always just like big, like hump out of the water type deal,
okay.
and boat
Yeah.
flips, and I laugh, and then like that's all I can ever really pull back as of now.
Huh.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's
super.
wild.
But I never even thought about it with, because we've talked a lot about sea monsters in our past
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have.
conversations,
Yeah.
and I never even thought about it in that regard, though. I should, yeah, I'll send you what I have of it so far, so you can give it a read through. I think you'd
Sure.
like it.
Yeah, because that might be a cool way to guide the plot. Is like, what does this monster even look like? It's just like left
Yeah.
open to your imagination. Yeah.
Dude, I love that. That's
Yeah.
great. Absolutely.
Because
One of the Oh, go ahead.
I used to have like I was like terribly scared of sea monsters as a kid. Like I had a
Really?
copy of the edition I had of Journey to the Center of the Earth when I was little was like they're on a raft. It's a picture of these two dudes on a raft, and there's like this big like ichthyosaur type fish looking monster and like a more of a serpentine one fighting around them,
Whoa.
and that just like inspired like dread in me. I'm like, oh man, because these two guys are tiny compared to these giant creatures battling right next to them. And
Yeah.
of course that happens in the book. It's like way into it. They're trying to cross this like ocean in the middle of the earth. Um, but yeah, I had nightmares as a kid. I had one where like plesiosaur type dinosaur came out of the water and my dog ran up to it and started barking at it, and I was like scared for my dog. Like I tried
Oh
to go save
no.
my dog, and this thing was just whipping its head around like its long neck, and it was like really scary. Like it was a scary dream for
That's so freaky.
me.
Dude, no,
Yeah.
that's absolutely anything where your dog's in danger. That's double scary.
Yeah. Yeah, because dogs are stupid and they're gonna get themselves in
That's
trouble.
Now that's a true statement. Was that
Yeah.
before, or did that lead to your fascination with the Loch Ness Monster, or kind of
Yeah, see, it's weird because I don't really it's hard for me to place when that dream happened, but I mean, I guess I had a dog, so I mean, I didn't get a dog until I was older because I was allergic to dogs, and we rationalized it as like my allergy wasn't so severe that I'd suffer unless he was like sleeping in my bed. So he just wasn't allowed to be like in my room. But other than that, I was pretty okay.
And
So
you're a
it
dog
took
owner to
like,
this day, right?
yeah, I have a dog now.
I thought
I
so,
was
yeah.
I was allergic to like everything they tested me for as a kid, but I have a dog, I have a cat. I kind of just grew out of my allergies, you know. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's
but yeah, I mean, I think I probably already loved the Loch Ness Monster at that point. Um, I had a
totally.
fascination with that because of Weekly World News and um, watching like unsolved mysteries and all the weird, looking into ghosts originally had led me to every weird thing, you know.
Yeah.
So the
It's
mysteries of
fun.
the unexplained book, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Loch Ness is just a one corner away, one turn from finding those ghosts.
Well, because
That's
any book or collection of weird stories was going to have that surgeon's photo somewhere in it,
oh,
if
100%.
if not on the cover, it was in there somewhere. So, yeah,
To this day, my so you can buy like weird books like that that are probably horribly AI written at like Five and Below these days. Like when my
yeah, yeah,
kids, because my kids will go to Five and Below for their like, oh, I did something really good. I'm gonna get a little trim. All right, we'll go to Five and Below and pick out something from there because
right,
it's
yeah,
nice
yeah,
and cheap. And like my 8-year-old is really into like Loch Ness Monster, all the weird stuff. It's great. It's been really
mhm,
fun. He's like really thriving in it right now. So he'll pick out those books sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, totally. And then I'll look at it, and I'm like, this is the same like four pictures that's been around
yeah,
forever. But now it's like I feel like it's way like not quite written as well, and like I'm like I'm pretty sure this is just AI writing these books at this point. This is not any kind of like National Geographic sponsored thing or like
yeah, yeah, and
nothing
that's a
along those lines.
problem.
It's a
Yeah,
problem for sure. But yeah, it's interesting to see like that access point. Same, I took him to the Scholastic Book Fair for his school at the end of the year, and they still have like a full shelf that's all just the unexplained and the mysteries,
mhm,
and like it's still like a big thing for kids, which is so cool to see because
yeah.
it's yeah, it's good for
I,
kids to
I
get into it.
I feel like that's like ground zero for a lot of people is that those book fairs, and they gravitate towards that, and I
Yeah,
think that's awesome. I mean, for me, my mom just like bought that Mysteries of the Unexplained from Reader's Digest when
hell
it was
yeah.
advertised on TV, like probably before I was born. It was just in my house, you know. So
You can't
like I
beat
took that,
that.
yeah. So I had taken that off the shelf, and thus began my fascination after a few of my own experiences. But of course, my early childhood was like um, dinosaurs all the way. I was obsessed with dinosaurs, so it was kind of natural that I would gravitate towards the Loch Ness monster
It's
because it's
so
basically
funny how
that.
kids just love dinosaurs, dude. Like my 4-year-old loves
Still,
dinosaurs right
yeah,
now. Like she is so into them, and she doesn't want like the cute Barney. She wants like the big, like lizard skin T-Rexes. Like she wants like the real deal ones that are like gnarly looking. And now there's just like endless amounts of stuff for her to choose from. It's one of those things that I'm like I have to restrain her a little bit. But yeah, dinosaurs are still huge, and like I mean. I think Jurassic Park was probably the most formative movie of my childhood. Like I was like, I was born in '85. That hit in those like early '90s. I don't think I saw it in the movie theater, but the Jurassic World was definitely one of my first like
mm,
movie theater experiences. And yeah, man, the dinosaurs. I wanted to be a paleontologist growing up. I was like,
me
fuck being
too.
I was like, fuck being an
Yeah,
archaeologist. A paleontologist is way cooler. I remember like thinking I was cool because I knew the distinction between the two at a certain
right.
point when I was a kid, and like,
Yeah,
yeah, that was the dream.
yeah. I remember thinking I wanted to be like Richard T. Bacher. Do you remember that guy? He's basically
Yes.
like the guy that Grant in Jurassic Park is based on. But yeah,
Exactly. The dude that like so yeah, man, the drawings of dinosaurs of my youth were like destroyed by that dude because he was like none of
yeah,
these are accurate. This is all complete. The complete volcano should not be in any of these paintings. But I'm like, look how cool that volcano looks erupting behind that T-Rex. Are you kidding me?
yeah. But he was
But
this
yeah.
big bearded dude with like a cowboy hat and
Yes,
like
yes.
teeth on a necklace hanging around it. Like, yeah, it was
So
cool,
perfect.
cool guy. He was a cool guy. But yeah, I read Jurassic Park when I was in fifth grade. so I'm just a couple years older than you. But
Yeah.
the copy I had the star on it that said "soon to be a major motion picture."
Before it
So
was.
yeah,
Yes. Dude, that book I just listened to a whole podcast about that movie because I'm going through, so my kid just asked to watch Star Wars for the first time, so we went through and watched the first 3, and then I'm like, "Oh, what can we go through next? What can we do?" And like he's like 8, so he's at that level where there's like certain things I'm like, "No, don't want to deal with that." Like even like I was like Indiana Jones maybe. No, there's a lot of stuff I don't want to have those conversations about anytime
yeah,
soon, and
yeah,
like,
yeah,
lots of things that we can skip there. But then I was like, oh, there's got to be some good Spielberg besides that. Maybe E.T. But then like I watched and I'm like, man, that ending is brutal when E.T. is dying. And like, and
yeah,
then once my kid hears the word penis breath, he's just gonna call everybody penis breath. And I'm like, I don't
yeah,
want, I don't need to load that into his brain right now. But I've been going through watching and like listening to like histories. And Jurassic Park was one of those things that was written and sold as a movie like way before the book came out. Like, and once the idea was there, they were like, oh yeah, dude that wrote those other really famous things is writing a dinosaur book. Give me. And like,
yeah.
yeah, it
Which is
changed.
funny because it's essentially the same plot as Westworld,
Yeah.
which he wrote like in the early 70s, but they just put
Exactly.
dinosaurs instead of robots.
That's so funny. You're absolutely right. I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. That's hilarious. And the book's way more. It's been so long. So I did read it like eventually, like once I don't know, at some point I read it, but it's way more brutal, right? It's way meaner. I remember in general.
Yeah, so that was the thing. When it became a movie, my mom assumed that I would be all about it and like wanted to bring, she was like excited to bring me to the movies because but I was terrified. I'm like, I know what happens in that book. I don't want to see that. I was like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, this guy's gonna get ripped open by a velociraptor.
Yeah.
I don't like
This is gonna be too much.
I actually had to leave the theater. I got too scared and had to leave.
I
And
did
then
that a
my
few
mom,
times.
yeah, it's embarrassing now to think about, but I had to leave because I knew about the stuff that was coming. And then my mom walked me to the next theater over, and I saw the end of Free Willy
Yes.
because it was playing
Very,
at the same
very
time.
uplifting. Very
Yeah.
uplifting. Jurassic Park
Um,
gets there as far as the uplifting goes, but yeah, that was one of those ones that like in my brain I'm like it's not that bad. And then I start thinking I'm like no, there's no way I can show him that for a while. That's a long way off.
right. Well, the book was graphic because it was like, the velociraptor's claw slid across his stomach and his intestines fell out, and then he's crawling
Totally.
away, and you're like,
And
they
like
don't get that. Yeah, that's not
no,
that bad of
no.
a movie.
Yeah, no. There's something and there is something like I still get this sometimes when I'm reading even with comics and stuff where the picture you paint is way scarier than what you're being
Mhm.
shown. Like letting your imagination fill in those blanks and like really sit in that stuff, man, that's
Yeah,
tough. It's honestly turned me off of reading so much stuff, especially in the comics world, because one of the big strains of comics in like that's been there since the 60s or 70s is like really graphic gory horror comics and things that really push boundaries, and there's a bunch of
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
on eastern comics, western comics. It's all over, right? There's
yeah,
images that
yeah.
you look at and you're like what, like if you've ever read a Junji Ito comic, you're kind of changed as a person afterwards, and I'm like, I don't know if I need this anymore. I don't know if I kind of steer clear of a lot of those books these days. Although I get what they're doing. I love that they're there. And there's a lot of cartoonists that work right now that put out work that I would love to support. But then I'm like, I just don't want that in my house because
Yeah,
it's so graphic and like,
right,
that kind of next level, especially with like, I have kids and they don't really like if they see a comic, I have to remember that not all comics can just be left out anymore because all my kids can reach
right,
all the surfaces and it just looks like a fun little book, and then they open it up and it's like full frontal nudity and horrible things happening, and I'm like, yeah, okay, they don't need to see any of this yet. So,
right, right,
but
right.
no, it's definitely having that reading experience with the violence is way different than the theatrical experience for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, one thing about that movie too that people forget is that was one of the first. Jurassic Park was pretty much the first major film that involved that much computer graphic imaging,
Yeah.
um, where it could be convincing like that.
Yeah. And
Um,
like they also forget the secret sauce is that it's that combination that they had like
right?
it's CGI and so much practical and like there's that other There's another type of not motion capture thing they use that's not CGI. That like
Yeah.
so it's like this weird mesh of all three. Because if it was just CGI, I don't think it would be nearly. And I think that's why like it not only holds up but looks better than most things these days. You
Right.
know,
Yeah,
like
exactly. It
when I
looks
put it
better.
back on, I'm like, this feels and like it's cool to see that like it's not like ET where they're like, we're gonna backlight everything and just hide
Right.
things. And like the dinosaurs look better in the day than they do at night in a lot of those
Yeah.
scenes, you know? It's really weird. But like I think you're right. It is that like early CGI that is like not fully reliant on that, but it's mixed with these like artists that like have been doing this for since the 70s. Like, they're
Yeah.
they're they're working with these people that really know how to make a puppet dance and now how to
Yeah.
like
On the
like all,
animatronics and stuff. Yeah.
total that shit that like when my and so I just said that my kid wanted to watch Star Wars for the first time, so we watched the original trilogy, the first three, and like when he sees Yoda hopping around that stupid little puppet, he is blown away still. Like when he
Yeah.
sees those graphics, and I'm like, Teddy, that's a painting. That is just a matte painting with stuff. He's like, what? How is that a painting? And I'm like, and I'll show him some of the behind the scenes stuff, and he's like blown away by like the special effects and like
Yeah.
the final result. And this is somebody that who, if you ask him, his favorite movie is the Minecraft movie. That's like, they do use practical, but it's all CGI essentially. And
Mhm.
like, so he's exposed to nothing but this like over the top, like very modern storytelling, but that and like graphics and whatnot. But those classics hold up. And like, even when like the whole second movie, Luke, I am your father thing happens, he like
Yeah. Yeah.
freaked out, like seeing his little mind be like, oh, wait, what? And like, you realize like how important it is for Luke's hand to get cut off because that like
Oh
that
yeah.
got him. He's like, oh shit, he lost a hand. He's really and then
Yeah.
like once Darth Vader says like I am your, he's like wait, he like made me pause the movie. He's like throwing things, and I'm like, it's so cool that that can still have that reaction, and this
So
many years
were
later.
were you showing him the special edition though, or did you have the
So
original?
we got the original because
Awesome.
so the
Yeah.
first two we had the original, right? The third
Okay.
one was Disney Plus special edition with CGI and like, he caught it. Like he was like, "Dad, why does that look so weird?" And like the Jabba the Hutt, like that scene
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything where it's just like obvious like CG stuff added over top, and he's just and it's so funny that like he can catch it. He can be like, why does
Yeah.
that look weird? And like, but yeah, the
Right.
first two like it was definitely one of those. So what the last time I watched Star Wars was right like it must have been like right before he was born, and it was when I used to stay up late all the time, and it was before Disney Plus had them, so I downloaded all of the original ones like I don't even remember from where, but I still had those two. And then yeah, we watched the third one Disney Plus. But the other thing that's really cool that I think from watching those with him and seeing the way that he has been that he reacted to not only the like storytelling and the special effects, but he also like he's making his own stories now. Like that like
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
Star Wars just went away for like 10 years or longer after that, and everybody just like made fan fiction or read the comics or read the like there
Mhm.
was this whole world, and I'm like, I kind of don't want to show him the other ones for a while. I kind of want to just like let him like hang out in this world because he's already like writing his own little like comics about it and like building Lego sets and like doing stop animation with like his own storylines. I'm like, I kind of like this better. I don't need to show him like how Darth Vader
Yeah.
became Darth Vader yet or like any of that stuff.
Right.
It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
But
those movies aren't that great anyway. But
no. And I think there's something that we miss as a culture of having properties that can rest for 10 years. You know what I mean? Like there's something
right.
like that's why Star Wars was so special is because it went away for so long. It's kind of why like it was not yeah, I don't know. I think there's something to that we can learn a little bit from that like, things don't have to go away for a decade maybe, but like, give it a year or two sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. And yeah, because then you can debate for eternity about little points and stuff like that. And I mean, I think the blessing and the curse of the modern internet age and fandom is that producers are looking at what the fans say and
Mm,
making decisions based on that. And after a certain point, it's like maybe just ignore the fans and just do something creative and cool
yeah.
because
Yeah,
people will like it either way. They're really going to like
totally.
it. Just do
Totally.
something
And like
innovative. Don't
the
try to please everybody.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's again, like that's one of those things that I think is so cool about comics versus so many other things is that the one of the reasons that the movies have it's like anything else in capitalism, like they have to grow and make more money, so they do the fan edits because they think that's the way that they can make sure they make more money and cut the butts in the seats. And like it's just the antithesis of creativity almost. It's like the opposite.
Right.
It's not that like fans don't ever have good ideas or whatever. Like I'm sure there's some things that are fine. Like great, right? But yeah, like that whole auteur or however you say that word, but that whole idea that this is one person's vision has
Hmm.
really started to go away in a lot of things. Like even just talking about someone like Spielberg or so like there's not as many of those type of creatives or people that have like not only like his like, ubiquitous or whatever, but just like this is a body of work that's all one body of work. You can see a cohesiveness in
Hmm.
that body. Like, we could talk about David Lynch in the same way or like a million other people,
Right.
but like there's not I don't see as much of that anymore, and I definitely am not as tapped into cinema or my
Yeah.
latest movie going experiences have been the Minecraft movie and Stitch, so the new
Yeah.
Lilo and Stitch movie. So uh, both fine, like like as far as the movies go, man, great. Like the Minecraft movie is a thing that exists, and at least I'll say the best thing is that the whole message of the movie is that it's harder to make things than it is to destroy things. And even though it sucks to be like creative and it's really hard to do that, we should. And I'm like, that's cool. I like that
Yeah,
idea. Like
that's a
that
good message at
that's a
least.
good
Yeah.
message. And it's Jack
Yeah.
Black kind of forcing it down the kid's throat. So it's kind of good. But man, there's a lot of weird stuff about that movie.
Well, I haven't seen it.
We can
I,
you don't ever need
yeah.
to.
I mean, my son thinks it's weird, and he was like brought up with Minecraft. He's like, I don't understand why they made a movie like that. I'm like, well, you got good taste, I guess. I don't know what to tell you.
Yes. I think that means you did something right, AP.
Yeah. I mean, he's 16, so I was taking him to see like the new Final Destination movie.
That's so
So,
cool. I'm looking forward to that time. That's awesome.
yeah, when you can watch horror movies again.
Yes,
So I
exactly.
think I've heard you mention before that like becoming a parent makes horror movies a lot less fun, and I had that experience when he was little. It
Yeah,
was like I'm like, did I lose my nerve? Can I not watch these movies anymore? But it's just like it means more when you're responsible for a life, like
totally,
the
totally.
stakes are higher. You're watching
Yeah.
the movie, and all of a sudden you feel bad for everybody. And you're like, oh no.
But there's got to be a good or there's got to be there's got to be a good feeling to be able to share that experience with them eventually and be able to get,
Yeah.
that's the way to do it. I can see that being the way to get over that hump.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A couple of years ago, he was like, he was mentioning horror movies and wanting to watch some, and I'm like, all right, here we go.
We got this. We got this. It is funny, like letting them come to you for stuff and seeing like what they like. Cause I had never really tried. Like I'm not the type of parent that's like, I love this thing, you will watch it, or like I just never
Hmm.
put. Excuse me. I kind of let the kids lead and try and get into what they're into. So like, if he's super into Minecraft, let's go, man. Minecraft, let's do it. Like, and I'll sit
Hmm.
there. We play Minecraft a good amount. But he's the one that came to me. I was like, I want Star Wars now, Dad. And I'm like, I don't know. It was probably a Lego set, honestly. It was probably something like
Yeah.
that where it's just like completely. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's Star Wars. Then I was like, I think this is a good age for that. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And the same thing with like right now, like for my birthday last year, he got me, and I didn't ask for this. I no clue what, but he got me Zelda, one of the new Zelda games, the Tears of the Ages, which is like I haven't played a Zelda game since the Nintendo, like the first Zelda,
Hmm.
the one that was at the gold cartridge and everything. And I don't know anything about modern day video games, but I'm like, we can do this. Yeah, let's do it. And it's a
Yeah.
blast. It's been so much fun. We've been playing it for almost a year now together, and I have no clue how far I am or anything, but like it's so much fun to play with him. And it is like it's reminiscent and it's cool because like
Yeah.
it's sword and sorcery. It's getting him into all like he loves the monsters. He loves the storytelling of it all. He likes the whole lore of the game. And I think I
Hmm.
mentioned to you before we started. Now his favorite thing to read are these Zelda manga series that like I think
Yeah.
he's like 6 books into, and like they're so cool. Like I'm reading them with him, and I'm like, he finishes one, and then I read it, and they're great. So it's nice. I'm like, okay, this is cool. We're starting to get on the same level here with some things.
Yeah. I was never a huge video game guy, so that's always been tough for me because my son loves it. You know, he's a big
Yeah,
gamer, and I'm just like it's hard for me to relate. But it's nice when we can, meet up on that level. Um,
totally.
but that was something I was thinking earlier when you were talking, especially about like the Minecraft movie and our conversation about CGI. Is that I think like we do need to bring those matte paintings back. Like, give us some like cool backgrounds and stuff. It's like if you watch a play or if you watch like Shakespeare in the Park, like of course you're imagining all this stuff, and it's the performance that conveys it.
Yeah,
And in a movie, it's like we know it's a painting in the background. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Um, I'd rather know that than you know feel like I'm supposed to be dazzled by the computer graphics because
absolutely.
I was trying to get this across recently that my wife was watching Wicked, and I'm like, I don't know, it just feels like it's all a computerized world. And it's like I just feel like I'm watching somebody play a video game when you
Yes.
watch something like that, and I
Yes,
have no interest
100%.
in watching anybody play a video
Dude, and the thing
game.
is, man, what bums me out, I completely agree 100%. And what bums me out is people will be like, oh, well, you can't do that because it's not flashy enough for kids. It's not like holding people's attention and blah, blah, blah. And not only does that Star Wars anecdote at least prove to me that that's bullshit, because obviously it worked on my very overstimulated like media technology saturated 8-year old like, well,
Mhm.
not luckily he doesn't have social media or anything breaking his brain yet, but yeah, he plays tons of tablet stuff, plays tons, like he's a
Yeah,
digital dude, right? But he again,
right.
he was blown away. Not only that, but the other day, I guess this is a little bit ago, he came to me and he was like, Dad, I saw this cat bus thing, and I don't know what it's from, but there's a cat bus and I want to know about it. And I'm like, pretty sure that's from My Neighbor Totoro. And like he had never seen anything like that. And I don't know if you've ever seen My Neighbor Totoro,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so like I put that on and I'm like, this may last like 5 minutes because the first 40 minutes is just like kids traveling to the countryside of Japan and moving into
Yeah,
some
yeah.
like you don't see any like Totoro or weird stuff or any action for like almost an hour into that movie. They were hooked. It's their favorite movie. Like we've watched
Hmm.
Spirited Away since and a few others and like but they're hooked and like it's so slow paced. It's the exact opposite of the Minecraft movie. Like the Minecraft movie starts in the first
Yeah.
10 minutes they give you enough information that could fill three other movies, right? And like it's just
Yep.
fast cut like info dumps, right? My Neighbor Totoro is just this beautiful slow moving like really kind of turtle paste artwork piece of art and like
But yeah,
so
it's cinematic and it's artful.
and we're watching
I
it
forget the guy's name that makes those. Crap.
Miyazaki or wait, man, Studio Ghibli. Man, I should
Yeah,
not
Studio
be.
Ghibli.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
should not be blanking on these things, but I'm really
Is
bad
it
at names.
Miyazaki? Is that
It's. I'm pretty sure that's
okay?
right. But
Because I'm not a big anime guy, but I can appreciate the art in those. I'm like, this is very artful. It's very cinematic. It's the guy knows how to tell a story.
yeah,
He's and do it his way. It's that kind of
and
auteur thing. Yeah,
what's like really amazing to emphasize is we're sitting there watching it, and I'm like, Teddy, this is all hand drawn. This is all drawn
yeah,
by people. It doesn't touch a computer. And he's like, no, you're lying. Like, there's no way this is not done on. I'm like, no, this is all like the creator of this, Miyazaki. You're right.
mm,
I'm not sure if I'm
yeah. Okay.
pronouncing it correctly, but yeah, he like doesn't believe in those type of things. He believes that like he like it's funny because this was all right around that time with the AI controversy with
Hmm.
his artwork and everything, and that famous quote going around how he believes that it's like soulless and the end of the human soul is using these
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
I'm like, no, Teddy, you don't understand. This is like he would never like this is all like the point is that it takes forever and that it's done by
yeah,
hand and that's why it's part of why it's so beautiful and why it works and like if that same exact movie was made taking shortcuts, I don't know if it would work, honestly. Like if
yeah.
they did the exact same story and it wasn't hand painted and it was all done digitally and what like I don't know if that works, you know? So same
It
thing
probably
with
doesn't. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I think he probably. I could be wrong about this, but I get the sense that a lot of the stuff that happens in those movies comes from kind of like a Shinto animistic
100%.
perspective, and if there's no human agency, like there's no human hand holding the pen
Yeah.
that makes that image on the paper, then there's no soul, there's
A
no
a hundred
animating
percent.
principle, right? So
100%, dude. That's a
yeah,
100%. You think you just nailed it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, no, that's so, and that's one of those things that like I think we do ourselves a disservice to not just try and show stuff like that to our kids. And so, you know what I mean? Like I could have just been like in my dad brain, be like, I want this to last for 2 hours. So like we're entertained and not, I want to put on
yeah,
a guaranteed hit. Let's go back to the Mario movie. Let's go. But I'm like,
yeah.
no, let's, and I think the other thing is that like not just putting it on and walking away, like putting it on and
Hmm.
sitting it down and watching it with them and being like,
Right.
engaged with it as well. Because a lot of the stuff is like, it can be hard with kids media to be engaged with it because it hurts your brain sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people don't give kids enough credit either, and
That's
it's
yeah,
like, I've been surprised many times in parenting where some things are just timeless and they're never really going to go away, but most people would never think to try it.
exactly.
And it started with me with YouTube clips of like 1930s comedies that I liked, or earlier, like silent movies. Um, So, I mean, I got my son like hooked on Laurel and Hardy by accident. He just responded to Laurel and Hardy like crazy when he was little, and he still to this day will just like reference them.
That's
And,
amazing. I love
and,
it.
and, and I'm like, what kid his age like knows who Laurel and Hardy are? It's just like,
That's amazing. That's amazing. He's gonna get so many reference because like stuff like Laurel and Hardy is like in the base of so much of our culture without us knowing it. Like they're like
yeah,
like from Simpsons down all the way through like Adventure Time I was watching, and there's still like physical humor that is from that time period and Laurel and
hmm,
Hardy and and it's so a part of what we do, right? So it's super
yeah,
he's going to understand that better than most people that are consuming the same media that he is, which is really it gives him a leg up in certain ways.
yeah. And I mean, I would have thought like Three Stooges because
Yeah,
that's like way more lowbrow. That's way more
just
violent. It's pie in the face
exactly.
stuff. And he's never really responded to the Stooges so much. He likes the Marx Brothers and Laurel and Hardy. And I'm
You
like,
never know.
okay,
Good
they're
taste
both
right
great
there.
too. Yeah,
Good taste. That's you never know what's going to hit.
yeah. But I still love the Stooges. I don't care.
No, I'm with you. It's probably my favorite out of all the ones you just named there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, uh, there's a realness and an authenticity that's in a lot of things that are um older and stand the test of time for a reason,
Yeah.
so we do need to give people enough room to really explore that. But on the topic of like the CGI and using your imagination, I wonder what you think about this, because this is something I felt with specifically the Doctor Strange appearances in Marvel movies, because this touches on Jack Kirby, who I know that you're a big fan of.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
because seeing a comic panel of Doctor Strange with all like the psychedelic crazy stuff going on around him, but then watching it in a movie, like I get disoriented and lost like immediately in the movies when that stuff
Yes.
starts happening, and I'm like, man, they could have done something way cooler with that based on like the old Kirby designs and psychedelic stuff. So I didn't know if you
A
agree with
hundred.
that or
100%. No, I think you nailed it, dude. And like I like things that make decisions, make visual choices and say I want to look like this and like I don't know, like the whole trying to bring the comic language into the real world just
Mhm.
misses the mark. And it's not like and it's one of those things that like it's not that I think it all needs to be like an animated cartoon or anything like that, but it just needs to be less I don't know, realistic if that is I
Yeah,
don't know. Like it
yeah,
just needs to be like if those Doctor Strange powers that we're talking about were just like the oversaturated colors that Ditko used to use, those pinks
yeah,
and yellows that are flat and like if that stuff started swirling around, it would
right,
probably look amazing, right? And like I
yeah,
think those are the instead of asking if we should, they are just like, we can, so let's do it, not like, should we do it? It's like that whole Jurassic Park thing, right? Like,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like, is it going back there? Like, they're like, oh, we have the technology to do this now. Let's just do it as realistic as possible instead of stepping back and being like, oh, maybe it's not better to be as realistic as possible. And maybe it's better. And I feel like, even comic artwork in comic books suffer and they're still struggling. Like when you pick up a comic off the rack these days in the top two, the Marvel and DC's, most of the artwork is like modeled to look like the closest thing to the CGI that you're seeing on movies
Mhm.
these days. Like it's very brown and muddled and like very much just like lost the fun, vibrant thing that I think of with comics. Like it lost the like punchy primary colors and the like
Yeah, the four
really
color thing. Yeah.
and the clean lines and the fact that like
Yeah.
Superman's not supposed to look like a man, like 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 these things are
Yeah.
supposed to be cartooned and they're supposed to be like exaggerated. And when your whole thing is to try and just draw the most realistic background with the most windows and the most like all that, I'm like,
Yeah.
you're kind of losing the magic here. Like when one of the things that's magic about comics is that you can draw a skyscraper with 500 windows with like 8 lines. Like you don't need to draw
Yeah.
every little window. You can just like hint at things and give people the suggestion of stuff. And like I think that those kind of classic cartooning techniques have gotten lost with the tools of the trade in the current times.
Mhm.
And I think that's the same thing with CGI and practical effects is there's these like this history of techniques and art forms that were created just to tell these stories, whether it was comics or whether it's movies. And like you're
Yeah.
kind of disregarding that whole history. I like go, so I draw on a tablet a lot, right? Like I'm not completely analog. Like I do a lot on the tablet and I go back and forth because it does feel better to like dip a nib into a jar of ink and drag it across a piece of paper. That feels really good, but it is way more time consuming. You have to clean up a bunch of stuff. I can't do that easily like while I'm watching the kids. Like it's easier to be on a
Yeah. Yeah.
tablet and like all those things for sure. But one of the things that I think about a lot now, because a different cartoonist said it, his name's Josh Pettinger. He writes some of the funniest comics out there these days. And he said the reason that he went back to drawing traditionally is because he feels like he's part of a lineage. When he picks up a brush or a nib and dips it in the ink, he's doing the exact same thing that Jack Kirby did, that Charles Schultz did, that Bill
Mhm.
Watterson did. All of these amazing artists, he's performing the exact same act that they did, and he feels connected to that history via that. Where if he's drawing on a piece of glass with a piece of plastic, he doesn't feel that connection anymore. And I'm like, dude, that's all right, valid, got it. Like I love
Yeah.
that. Like that's something that I think is real and can be applied outside of the just art 2D art realm. Like if people started making movies with those old tried and true analog techniques, I bet there'd be some really cool results from it.
Yeah, and I mean, it proves itself. The proof is in the pudding often enough. And like you mentioned at the top of this, the Batman animated series from the 90s, which was a throwback to the old like Fleischer cartoons, like the Fleischer
Absolutely.
Superman. And that was groundbreaking, innovative animation for its time. And it holds up. Like you watch those old Superman cartoons from what, like the 30s, and
Oh
they're doing
yeah.
all that
Dude,
rotoscoping stuff, and it looks gorgeous. It's such a
it's
cool look.
those Fleischer cartoons like blew my mind when I first saw them. Like I didn't see those until college. One of my college professors did backgrounds for the Batman the animated series and Batman Beyond, I think both of those. Um and he was the first person to be like you need to go watch these Superman. And I was like
Yeah,
my mind was just blown. Like I was like, "Oh, this is where it all came from." Okay, cool. But
yeah,
even the way they designed all of the buildings to be that Art Deco style and like
mhm,
the whole thing was just like a period piece but more modern than Batman ever felt at the same time, which
yeah,
was just
yeah,
really weird dynamic that I loved.
yeah. Well, he's the man of tomorrow, and
Yeah,
Batman's gothic, so it's
it's that is so true. And like, dude, that's the other thing that so like oh man, Bruce Timm, right? Like the guy that
mhm,
designed all of that and everything. Like his influence that went from that back into comics, like it completely like it made Batman fun again in certain ways that he was
Yeah.
not in a lot for a long time. Like it kept some of the darkness that Batman always had, but it kind of like lightened up some of that Dark Knight Returns vibe that was going
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
and was so
Oh yeah.
thick in the Batman, which I love. Like I love Frank
Right.
Miller's work and everything, but like
And the
that
Killing
whole
Joke, and yeah.
total Killing Joke, that's fucking brutal, dude. That
Dark.
one is just so dark and so and like I love it, right? That is from artwork to story, like one of my favorites. But yeah, like it was nice to have like Bruce Timm bring this kind of poppy Batman back, and like
Yeah.
people like Darwin Cook kind of grab hold of that and run with it. Mike Allred, these dudes that the Batman 66. I don't know if you ever read those, but it was essentially they got the rights to um man, why am I blank? My brain's
The
going
Adam
AP.
West.
My brain, Adam West. Yeah, they
Yeah.
got the rights to Adam West's likes and likely likeness and had Michael already draw it all, and it's like the most batshit Batman comics ever in the best way. Like tons of Batusi,
Well,
tons of over the top awesomeness.
they made a few animated things with that though, and they had Adam West do the voice. Did you ever see
Really?
those? Yeah, there's
No.
one. There was an unused script. They were going to do a Two-Face episode in the original series, but they decided it would be too scary for the kids. Um,
Amazing.
and so they never did it, but they did it as a cartoon like maybe 20 years ago. Maybe not that long ago. I think it popped up on streaming at some point, so maybe not
Okay.
20 years, but 10 years ago maybe. And
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Adam West is in it, Burt Ward's in it,
Amazing.
um, Julie Newmar's in it, and they bring in William Shatner to be Two Face. Now, I
Oh,
mean, obviously they're
wow.
all older, but it's a cartoon, so it doesn't matter, you
It's
know.
perfect. It's
But it's
perfect. They got their
probably
voices
really,
are dead
yeah.
on.
The voices still sound the same, so it's
Amazing, dude. I gotta look that up. That'll be
yeah,
a weekend watch for sure.
yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Oh
Because I
man.
loved that stuff when I was a kid. The '60s Batman series was
That
always on
was
reruns, and I loved it. Yeah,
Nick at Night for me. It was like I Love
yeah,
Lucy and the original Batman series. Like that was my first job. I saved up $100 roughing soccer games to buy like a little TV I could have in my room, and
yeah,
that was like that was pretty much what I remember watching mainly was Nick at Night, Dragnet, I Love Lucy. Like
yeah.
yeah, all the yeah, so good on a little black and white TV.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like that gave it an opportunity to make Batman fun again, with that stuff and a little less dark.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, the voice acting in that was great too with the animated series. Mark Hamill doing the Joker was,
so good.
I never knew for years that that was Mark Hamill for some
No,
reason. I just
me either.
never.
Nope. Not until I was like, yeah, definitely into well into adulthood for sure. Yeah, that was one of those shows are in my brain forever and the type of thing that I'll just put on sometimes, just an episode and just have it on in the background. It just makes you feel good. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I feel like I'm getting home from school and turning on the TV and like, yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, yeah, and much the same way. I got like a warm feeling just hearing about it, and we kind of blew past it. But Bill Watterson and Calvin and Hobbes was like huge for me. I still have them actually, all the collections of the comic strips,
The
and
big
I would
floppy
just read.
ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're the best.
Uh,
They're the best.
like the Attack of the Homicidal Jungle Cat, and like yeah,
Yes, no, dude. I still have a couple of those that I've gifted to my kids at this point. Like there's some of the books I try and just leave comics out, and there's just some of the
right.
ones that I just leave out forever. And then I have like, I don't know, a while ago now they put out like two editions of the full series and these nice hard
Mhm.
cover books that go in a slipcase. So I have that I keep out here. And then they just not too long ago, is it still right here? They put out these really nice little editions that I usually nope. I usually keep one next to my desk, but there's these really nice. They're only like this big, and it's like the same thing as the big floppy ones. They're all put in like here's the winter collection, or here's the
Yeah.
yeah. So I look at those all the time. But those books were the first thing that I read and was like completely enamored by the magic of comics, like that marriage
Mhm.
of pictures and words, and just the
Yeah.
way that it moved from panel to panel, and just the like it was so perfect with the 90s Nickelodeon kid that I was, where like parents
Yeah.
are the enemy. This is from the kid's perspective. Like there's this like mischievousness to the whole thing that I was really, always really
Yeah.
loved. And like, I don't know, it was the perfect complement to like Pete and Pete and that type of thing that I was watching on Nickelodeon at the time. I was like, this is what I want in everything. And I really, honestly, I don't know if I ever saw one in a paper. I don't think I ever like I don't even remember my parents
Oh,
getting a
really?
paper. Yeah, I don't think I ever.
Yeah.
I think they were all through the collections. Like I was just trying to think if I ever,
Yeah.
but no, I think everything was read through those collections.
Well,
Again,
the Sunday spreads were always the best. That's like with
oh,
like the T-Rex and the fighter jet and like
dude,
the
yes, those giant space alien monsters with Commander
right.
Ziff and like, dude, yeah, that was my favorite. And like the imagination that I couldn't recognize at the time, but like looking back, because they're one of the few things that like I've read and reread consistently throughout my,
Mhm.
whole life. And man, I don't think I've ever been disappointed. Like I don't think I've ever picked up
Yeah.
one and just been like, no, like I always put it down. And this is one of the things that is really hard to explain to people who don't draw, but there's this certain thing when you look at someone else's artwork and you want to put it down because you want to go draw. And that's like my
Yeah.
favorite type of artwork. And Bill Watterson just has that. Like you look at it and it's this perfect combination of like energetic and bouncy and complex, but kind of simple. And you're kind of like, I could do that. And it's really exciting. And like,
Yeah.
those are my favorite things to see. And he was like one of my first experiences of that, of being like, okay, I gotta go, like, I'll read like 4 strips and be like, okay, I gotta go draw something now. And then that was like,
Yeah,
still to
that's
this
how I
day.
felt too. Yeah, that's
You're,
how I felt reading it. It's like it perfectly balanced. It was very tasteful in the way that he could balance everything
100%.
in just 4 panels.
Yes.
And that's why I love the Sunday ones too, because he would just let it fly. Like you had that bigger spread to work with.
Yeah.
But
And it
also
was,
just like smarter than almost
oh,
any media that we have now. It just
100%. Like I'm getting goosebumps thinking about some of those strips, because the amount of like emotional intelligence that is portrayed by, a kid and his stuffed cat is just mind-blowing to me, honestly, and like just
yeah,
makes me want to cry a little bit sometimes. But knowing like it's one of the saddest stories ever as far as like why he stopped doing Calvin and Hobbes, and how much like the newspapers, because those Sundays were the thing that's what broke him, is they wouldn't give him those Sunday spaces anymore. He kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and
yeah.
shrinking, to the point where he felt like he couldn't even tell the story like properly anymore. And then I don't know if you ever watched the documentary on him, but it's like one of my favorite documentaries on an artist
It's a
ever.
Dear
It's
Mr. Watterson or
Yes,
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
And like just his morals and his ethics, and one of the dudes that actually stuck to everything that he said.
yeah.
And like, obviously it's a lot easier when you make that type of money off of a property, but man, he could have made so much more. Like he could have been one of the,
Yeah.
Charles Schultz level of like,
Or like
earning.
Jim Davis, like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Garfield stuff blew
Dude,
up, and that guy just never had to work again.
no, he could have. Yeah, no, and like I'm sure he still, is doing. He's painting Arizona landscapes or whatever. He just put that book out. Did you read it? It's really weird and awesome. It's like
No, I
a
didn't know he was. No, I didn't hear about it.
it's inside. So he's working with a photographer, right? And the photographer, it's a kid's book essentially, but it's not really a kid's book, but it's in the format of a children's book. And it's a photographer that takes pictures of like still lives and weird statues and stuff, and then he goes in and paints over top of them. So it doesn't look like Calvin and Hobbes at all. Like don't buy it thinking that this is going to be any kind of thing, but it's fun and weird, and it's cool just to buy a Bill Watterson book in
Oh,
2025.
we're talking about. Okay, I got confused. I thought you were talking about Jim Davis. I was like,
Oh, dude, no, I'm sorry. I jumped back. No, no, no. Jump back to Bill Watterson. No, now that would be even more next level, because Watterson, like, he is a painter, and like, he was famously, he
right,
retired to paint
yeah,
landscapes in the desert
yeah.
and all that stuff. And like, but yeah,
But yeah, I mean, that's what I was getting at. Is like he was being pressured, like, oh, we could license this as a Saturday morning cartoon, make all this merchandise, Calvin and Hobbes action
yep.
figures, and all this. And he's like, no, that's not what
No,
this is. You know,
he was
like,
And like listening to him talk about how like you can't have a Hobbes stuffy. It breaks the whole thing. Like if there's a
Right.
Hobbes stuffy that exists in the world, the whole thing's broken. We can't break the illusion. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about, buddy. That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Like that, like the dedication to go back to one of my favorite things that that Lynch talks about, but like the dedication to the idea and sticking to the idea more than anything else, and letting that be the guy. Like that is that 100%. Like you can't break kayfabe. Like the
Yeah.
whole gimmick is that Hobbes is a stuffed tiger that is brought to life
Sure.
when interacted with by by Calvin, and like
But and it only works in that medium. Like that
exactly.
comic strip is the world, and
Yes.
and I mean that's kind of what Alan Moore is always saying about movie adaptations. He's like, it's not a movie.
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
story exists in a comic book because a comic book is the way to tell that story. Like
Yes.
there's no other way to do it. Like
Yes,
you
no,
can't.
100%. And
Yeah.
like that, I think that's something that people forget is to like look at the medium that you're working in and lean into the inherent like strengths and weaknesses of that medium. I can't remember who made this rule now in the Simpsons writing room, but there was someone early on in those first like, hailed 10 seasons of the Simpsons where one of the rules in the writing room was that if you can make this joke and it doesn't work as a cart or wait, let me think of how it went. Like, if you could make this joke in a regular sitcom that's not a cartoon, it's not for us. Like, we have to use the cartooniness of the Simpsons to make these jokes. Like, the cartoon
Yeah.
has to be in, and that's something that like you never think of because some of the Simpsons jokes are pretty straight, but some of the best jokes are like dudes just jumping out of windows in the background or like things like
Right.
that where like it's just completely over the top. You can only do this because it's a cartoon, and I'm like,
Right.
that is using the medium to its inherent. And they took that medium and they're like, we're going to tell adult stories, and but they still use it as a cartoon. They still do like the weird
Well, that's
exaggerated
funny.
stuff.
Yeah, because you almost are better able to express something by having guardrails and
Yes.
strict rules. Because you mentioned Looney Tunes earlier too. Like um, Chuck Jones had a strict set of rules for Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons, and
That's amazing.
and as long as you followed that, like if you didn't from these like core precepts of what that cartoon is, it was going to be successful.
That's absolutely, dude. And that's the thing, like people like when you're starting out, you look at that as like a young artist and you're like, "Well, no, you can't have rules. There's always an exception to the rule." You go, and all that's true, but when you really start looking at people who make things consistently and like make things like not every Chuck Jones animation is like amazing, right? But like
Mm,
the things that people remember about Looney Tunes, it's from Chuck Jones. Like it's almost
right.
100% from Chuck Jones. I mean, like the reason that the Grinch is a thing in any of our brains is because of Chuck Jones. Like,
Yeah.
like he took what Dr. Seuss did and made it like a, cultural phenomenon. Like is like
Yeah.
and it was his decision to make him green. It was his decision to like do all of this weird shit that like we don't picture without the Grinch. And I think that
Yeah.
people that have those rule sets and work within them, they stumble upon these things without even knowing it. And it's not like, they're trying
Mhm.
to limit people's creativity. They know what works, and you can be more creative if you work within those guidelines or boundaries. And I think a lot about it from like a lot of the times people's best thing that they make is when they are a little bit like stifled in a skill level. Like they're not quite where they're gonna be as far as like as skilled at their craft, but there's something really special about it. It's like when you listen to
Yeah.
the first couple Ramones records. Like the reason they are so good is because none of them can play their instruments and none of them really know how to. They're just trying to write Shangri-La's and Beach Boys songs, and it just came
Right.
out like that. Like, and that's what's so special about it, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then that became the rule set, and then that became the like, okay, it's verse, chorus, verse, and like we have our
Yeah.
song structure, we have our uniforms, we are the fucking Ramones, and like they
Yeah.
made a bajillion really awesome song, like albums and songs and all that, and started a whole genre essentially
Yeah.
from
And
it.
then they
So
have later albums, and everybody still just wants to hear Blitzkrieg
ex-
Bop.
totally, totally, and like they're poor Joey. All he ever wanted was a hit.
Yeah.
My guy. All he ever wanted to do was be in like a famous girl group. But yeah, no, I think there's something I recommend that to anybody who's like feeling overwhelmed by something, if like, because a lot of people, I work with a few artists that are like they're in college still, and they're kind of like hit me up with questions and stuff, and a lot of the times it's just they get hung up so much, uh, excuse me, on like how they're going to execute something. Like I have 9 million different options to make this piece of art. How do I even choose what medium to use? And I'm like, just start simple. Like, what feels the best in your hand? A pencil. Okay, well, this is going to be an in pencil. This whole thing's in pencil. Like, just take it out. Like, if it feels good, then go with that and be like, all right, this is the decision, and impose some rules. Be like, okay, like, I'm going to do this, and it's only going to be like one of my favorite things to do is shrink like the space that I'm working on. So like the smaller you
Yeah.
draw, the more drawings you can do. So like when
Right.
you're first learning about comics, you see everybody draw these giant comic pages and like 11 by 17 or 18 by 24 it takes fucking forever, right? If you just
Hmm.
draw to the size of the so if you're printing your comic at like this size, draw the page at this size, and then you can not have to like spend all that extra time filling in blacks and everything. So little things like that, like just give yourself these little cheats and these little rules, and like kind of be an asshole to yourself about it. Kind of be like, no,
Yeah.
do it. Like be a little rigid, and like it doesn't mean you have to stay like that forever, but try it. In
Well,
fact,
it's
yeah,
discipline.
discipline.
You're learning a discipline, but also, I mean, you're playing too. Like,
Yes,
and if you're gonna play a game, all games have rules, you know. So like,
dude. That's a really great point, and something that like it's really hard for kids to get. My 4-year-old, the whole rules and games thing, she does not like, and she's really struggling with. And I get it, but yeah, no, the rules make the game more fun, and that's something that's like hard to learn. And like, it is really important, especially when you have this like endless potential, especially if you're working digitally. You
Mhm.
have an oil brush at your hands, you have watercolor, you could do a million different things. And if you don't have like kind of a defined rule set before you enter that like possibility sphere, then you're going to be
Mhm.
overwhelmed and might get some analysis paralysis type stuff, right? So like I
Yeah.
always have been grateful that I had a kind of defined style before I started working digitally. Like I had years of working traditionally before I had the ability. But there is something, that undo thing on the tablet, on the digital,
Yeah.
right? Like that is a magic thing that builds confidence. So like
Hmm.
it does. Working digitally has made me a better artist overall because of some of the confidence that like being able to hit undo a million times has given me. Like so it is a
Yeah.
it's not all one way or the other. Um but yeah, I definitely think that there's a lot to be said to just giving yourself like a 2 or 3 rules in any creative project.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I had a writing teacher at one point that said you have to learn all the rules before you could break them. You
Yeah,
know,
that's very
so
true.
like, learn how to work through the rules, but then once you know them, you're like, all right, well, I could pick and choose at this point, you know. But
Totally.
the self-imposed restrictions help a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, in that sense too, how many times have you, as an artist, like made a whoopsie while you're drawing, and then that ended up being like helpful to you
a
because
hundred
you could
percent.
because you didn't have an undo button, you know?
No, that has been huge. There's an artist I love, a comic artist named Josh Baer, and like when you watch the way he draws, it's so inspiring because it's just layers. Like he no pencils, it's all straight inks. If he messes up, it's just tons of white out. He dries it with a blow dryer, and then right on top of that, and like you look at his art and it's gorgeous, and you just see layers of mistakes and corrections, and I'm like, that's what it's about. That's it right
Yeah.
there. Like, and so yeah, I'm like essentially everything I draw these days, I've gone back to drawing traditionally, and then I go and like I'll take a picture of it and draw it, like do finishes digitally depending on how I want to finish the piece. But there's a lot of stuff like recently I've been let's see if I can pick this thing up. I've been trying to do drawings that are like this size that I can't
Yeah.
even scan because this is like ridiculously, so no one will ever probably see this, like I'll never be able to post that online or anything, but I've been trying to do things like that and do it in just ink, not start with pencils, not plan it out. And then if the nib just explodes and there's a big ink blop there, and I'm like, all right, that's there. We're gonna make that into a birdie now, and like try and
Yeah.
just like pull out, do some pareidolia magic in there, and try and just pull some stuff out of what I see, and like just kind of go with it because there is some of the best stuff that I've made has come from that. Some of the best stuff that I've like stumbled across, and not only like the thing that I like the best, where I'm like, oh, I like that one. The thing that people have responded to the best has been happy accidents and things that like I'm like, oh, I didn't think that little ink blob that turned into a UFO was going to get so many interactions on the internet. That's cool.
Right. Well, it was meant to be, you know. Um,
Exactly,
and
exactly. So,
I responded really to the work that you do because when I first came across it, I'm like, this is like a dream come true. These are like fun drawings, and they're inspirational and whimsical, and they have all these great elements, but they're paranormal subjects. You know, so I mean, was
that's
that was like a choice for you going into it? I guess, right? It's just
yeah.
that. Because I think most people's inclination is to go for scary when they
Yeah.
want to draw any of this stuff. But
I
did you just skip over that entirely? And
I I've never been good at scary, right? Like
yeah,
so I talk about this a good amount. And like we were talking about horror movies earlier and getting back to watching them, and I do enjoy a good horror movie and I do like enjoy some good scares and stuff. But honestly, I am the Halloween kid that's just like, give me the Disney specials, give me the
yeah,
Garfield Halloween special,
yeah,
give me the Office Halloween. Like I love just like funny, weird Halloween and like that side of things. And I think that um I've always been fascinated by things like, so when you learn about the story of E.T., right? And you learn that
mhm,
like that was supposed to be this script called, was it Watch the Skies or some shit like that or something like that, where essentially Steven Spielberg heard about the Kelly Hopkinsville goblins and he wanted to make a big scary like alien invasion movie, and then he realized, no, like this needs to be like a
yeah,
soft cuddly like fun like best friend alien movie. And I'm like, I love that that started as something like horrifying and went to something like soft and cuddly. And then you learn about the actual account, and it's kind of like right in the middle, right? Like it's like,
yeah,
like you read the account of what actually happened, and like there's a lot of absurd humor and weird like rainbow exhaust UFO flying and like bullets bouncing off of aerobatic little goblin men, and like the whole
mhm,
idea that they were actually gray and not green, but Kelly Green, and the newspaper went with green because it's Kelly
yeah,
Hopkinsville and whatnot. I love
right,
that shit, right? So like, there's always been like that. That's the hook that's always gotten me, is that like kind of mix of like weird humor and kind of silliness, but mixed with people being absolutely scared and
right,
weirded out, and like like something that's genuinely affecting people, right? So I really have always kind of bounced in between the two. But honestly, it's just my like, when I sit down, I thought about this the other day. I got the chance to do a big pop-up in Delaware earlier this year for about 2 months, where I got to do these giant murals, and I got to fill 3 rooms of this old violin shop in Wilmington. It's one of the most famous violin shops in the area, and the dude retired and moved to New York, so the people that bought the building let me have the whole thing to like do this little art show. And people would walk in and they'd be like, oh, this is weird. It's like walking into your brain. And I'm like, no, this is what I want my brain to look like. Like, that's what I think about
yeah,
my drawings that I post on the internet. Like, those are my messages to myself. That's what I want my inner dialogue to be, is like a little Mothman being like, yo, did you have a donut today? Like, that's not really what's in there all the time, you know? So, like, so the cuteness and the nice, like, it's all just this, like, you are what you make, right? Like, be careful what
right,
you make. So like, to me, if I'm making like scary dark stuff all the time, I'm a little scared that I'm going to be a little too into the scary dark stuff. And like, I kind of like my world in the light bubbly but like slightly weird and a little like, what the fuck is that, but in a good way.
yeah. Well, see, it's great too because the Hopkinsville case was always one of my favorites. Like I remember seeing some drawing of it in a book as a kid and being like, wow, because the goblins are almost like the gremlins, but they're not as scary. They're kind of weird, and then the goblin, it seems, is like kind of a central character that I think it pops up probably more frequently than anything
Oh,
else with your cartoons.
a hundred
Uh,
percent, and it's so in there, like the long-eared goblin. It's I'm rewatching the Star Wars. I'm like, oh, Yoda's just a fucking goblin. Like I'm looking. I'm
yeah,
like, oh, this has been in my Bugs Bunny, also just long-eared goblin. Like so
yeah,
many, just like the things that transfer in my brain as goblin.
yeah. Well, it's great. I mean, it's an awesome thing for to be the centerpiece, because it's kind of like that trickster energy, like
Yes, yes, yes. No, absolutely. And that's what I was trying to explain. It's funny because my kid's really into ancient Egypt right now, and he's been talking to me about a lot of it. I'm trying to explain to him like the idea of a trickster god because it came up in one
mm,
of the books that we're reading together,
yeah,
and he loves it because it's exactly what he is, right? Like an 8-year-old is a little trickster god. Like they want to be
yeah,
mischievous, they want to like push their badness, but they know they're kind of, like he knows he's a good guy, but he really wants to test it, and like so like it's just the perfect motif for what he's into right now. He's like
yeah.
he's neutral. He's not good or bad, but he's definitely something and trying to make some waves.
He's kind of a little Calvin,
Yes,
like,
exactly, exactly.
yeah, and in
Absolutely.
that sense, it's like Calvin creates his whole world. He has this whole imaginal world that he spends way too much time in,
Yeah.
to be
So true.
practical. Yeah.
Dude, so true. So true. I'm right there. I'm a grown-up Calvin.
Well, it's awesome that you get to be that. It's a real blessing
Very grateful, dude. I'm
for
very
all of us, really, because we get to enjoy it with you. So
That
yeah,
is too kind. No, I say all the time that I won some weird cosmic lottery that I get to draw weird pictures for coffee bags to support a family and do all this other like that's my main like job for those who don't know that are listening. I draw pictures for coffee bags. That's how I like pay the bills and everything. Everything online is just kind of fun or on like my Instagram and stuff. That's my like my morning drawings that I do to kind of get the day going and just kind of have fun, and then how I actually pay the bills is just drawing weird stuff on coffee bags, which is weird, right? Like it's weird that
yeah,
that's a job that I somehow stumbled into or created with my brain.
we manifested. Yeah,
Definitely, definitely think there was some manifesting in there.
yeah, but I mean, and aside from that too, I failed to mention it earlier, but I meant to, was the Welcome UFO People
Yes.
comic that you do with Rob Christopherson. Um,
Yeah, we're in the
it,
middle
it,
of issue 2 right now. That's going to be completely different. I actually just talked to Rob this
oh,
morning or this afternoon.
cool, cool. Yeah, I mean, now, so is that like a different kettle of fish for you? With it's more realism,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's definitely a very different cat. Like one, well, Rob's amazing. Like he working with Rob is super super fun because one, he's just like a wealth of knowledge, knows so much about the UFO topic, and like knows exactly the cases that I'm gonna love. Like he knows exactly what to pick to be like, oh, Todd's gonna have a blast drawing this, and like I mean, he definitely has the we probably could do I don't know 50 more issues of the style that we did the first one, and he could write those all day long. But what I love about Rob is he likes to challenge himself. So the next issue we're putting out is going to be completely different. It's going to be a completely fictional story that he's writing about a alien. We haven't really talked about how much. Well, I'm just gonna talk about it. It doesn't matter. He'll be fine with it. But it's an alien named Gumbus, and Gumbus is one of a crew that comes to Earth to do abductions, and he's about to retire, and it's covering him like kind of going through his last abduction and his retiring, and like what an alien does after they retire from a long life of abducting people, and he's using all of his knowledge of the cases that he's been studying forever, and like
yeah,
interjecting it all, but like his humor is amazing. Like the script he sent me is so funny and so I didn't expect it, honestly. I was blown away. And
yeah,
I'm like 4 pages into it. I'm finishing the second Illuminatus stuff right now and working on the new Welcome UFO People and kind of in the background of that. But as soon as the Illuminatus pages are done, then it's full-time Welcome UFO people on the side, and that should be done hopefully by the end of the summer. We'll have this first issue out. But we'll start posting pages probably end of this month. This is June, right? Yeah, end of this month. We'll have some pages of the new stuff up on the Instagram for people to check out.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, that has its own Instagram account. The welcome is it
Yes.
just at welcome UFO people?
I believe
Yeah.
so. That is,
Okay.
yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I highly recommend. Rob also has a couple Substacks that he started recently, and he's doing some personal writing that's so good. Highly recommend people checking.
Oh.
And I know
Okay.
people miss his podcast a lot, and I don't think that's going to be coming back anytime soon. But his writing, it definitely hits the spot. So definitely check that out.
All right. Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like we already just did the wrap ups here, like really organically. Usually I have to prompt
Didn't even
that,
mean
but
that. I
it just
I
kind
feel
of happened, you know.
You know, it's funny, AP. So when I was talking to Rob earlier, I was like, man, I haven't been on a podcast or done like a podcast or anything in so long. Because honestly, I was doing mine forever, and then this Illuminatus thing popped up, and the Dreamscapes, the book that I was talking to you about earlier. It just kind of took over of all of my time I had for the podcast, and I was like, I think my time's better spent making this than the podcast right now. So it might come back eventually. Like it might be something I start up in, when I stop having ideas for comics and stuff. But having these I forgot how time consuming comics are. And I'm like, this
But
is
your show is still up, right? The
Oh
episode.
yeah,
Yeah,
everybody can
yeah.
go
Okay.
listen to it and check it out. There's tons of good conversations with folks like yourself, and there's I
Yeah.
think with the daily episodes, there's like 400 episodes, which is I forgot that I even did that part of the podcast. To be honest, I was like, oh yeah, like I forgot that I rambled into a microphone for 5 minutes a day about the drawings I made for over a year, which is weird to think that I did that.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, all the interviews were great. I
Yeah,
always enjoyed hearing that show. So
those
people can check
were
that out too.
those
Yeah,
are the reasons that I would go back is having conversations with folks. Like there's definitely a long what's funny is in the weirdo sphere, like people are putting out books that were like made for my podcast, right? Like the new Joshua Cutchin book, the new
yeah,
who was it that just put out a book about the imagination not too long ago? Oh, the new Jeffrey Kripal book that just came out a
yeah.
little bit ago. And then the new Eric Wargo book From Nowhere that's all about precognitive creative experiences. And have you
Hmm.
dove into that one at all? It's great. I really, yeah.
I heard him talk about it a little bit, but I haven't got it yet. So
It's
yeah,
super super fun. It's easier read than the time stuff, honestly. But it might just be my proclivity to liking artists. So, but
yeah,
yeah, but yeah. So I'm all these books are coming out. I'm like, oh, this would be perfect to talk about on the show I don't do anymore.
yeah.
So maybe eventually I'll do it and then have all those people on and talk to them about these amazing books that they're writing.
Well, I mean, that's the great thing is like you can do it whenever you want. You know, you can always
That's
hop back in if you want to. You know,
Dude,
so
before we wrap up completely, that's something that's really important to me. Talking about making stuff is like, that's why what I do has always worked for me is because I don't have expectations about it doing anything or being experienced by anybody. So
yeah, I think
like
that's crucial. Yeah,
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 yeah, like make stuff just because you enjoy making it. Don't worry
yeah.
about because it's funny. Like there's been a lot of people that not a lot of people, but there's been a few people that have asked me about the podcast, and they're like, "Well, is it because like you have to do a video now and like you can't do a podcast unless it's on you?" I'm like, "No, none of that stuff matters to me like at all. Like I
Yeah,
don't care about any of that. Like I will only do audio because I can barely edit that. There's no way I'm going to like come back with a video format or anything. Like
yeah,
I do not have the means." Sir, I am going to if I bring it back, it'll just and that had nothing to do. It's just so funny that like when you put something out there and you forget that people do interact with it even on a small scale
hmm,
that like sometimes you get opinions back and you're like, oh yeah, people thought about that, that's cool.
right. Yeah, I
But
mean, it's that's the way I look at it too, and it's like you make it because you enjoy doing it. No, like this show is almost entirely selfish for me, I think, because I'm like, you know, there's just a hell of a lot of cool people out there that I would feel
yes,
real weird about being like, hey, do you want to just talk for no reason at some point?
yes,
Um,
yes.
so it's like having a show is just like, would you like to come on my show? That's like a lot less awkward.
Totally. It's so I mean that was 100% the reason that I started my it wasn't like I was listening to other people do podcasts and being like I could have that conversation better any of that. It was just like I want to talk to that person. Like I just think that I could have a fun conversation with that person and
Yeah,
feel
I mean,
weird just being like, "Do you want to just talk to me about comics for no reason?" Like,
yeah. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there too. Is like the competitive aspect. I feel like people have a natural inclination to be competitive, and
yeah.
it's like you're not when you're really creating and you're doing it from the heart because it's something you love. You're not in competition with anybody. I mean, you can
Yeah.
compete with yourself. Like, can I do this better
Totally.
than I did last time? But like, I mean, if you it's a waste of time just looking
Yes.
around, being like, why is that guy more popular than me? Like,
100%. 100%. The amount of people that complain about algorithms and all that stuff these days that is all valid bullshit, right? Like all but
yeah,
like
yeah,
it just
yeah,
doesn't help. It just doesn't help. And I think about it a lot. Like I love Mitch Horowitz and I love a lot of what he has to say about like not shit talking. And I think not complaining goes in that same thing. Like just don't complain about it. Just make something instead of complaining about it. And you
yeah.
know,
Both are true because
yeah.
really, what it does is it trains your mind to be in that negative cycle. I think
Yes. Totally.
you know
100%. And like
where
yeah.
you spend all your time training your mind to be like the gallery of your art. You know, like
That's the goal.
so,
That's the goal, 100%. And that's like Jeff Kripal says this a lot too. People ask him like why he's an optimist. He's like because I have to be. Like if I actually believe in what I say that like thoughts and ideas are more than just thoughts and ideas, then it would be very irresponsible for me to be pessimistic about stuff. And I'm like,
mhm,
it's a very true statement, sir. It's a very
yep,
good
and
point.
yeah, and depression begets depression. And I mean, as much as the world makes me really want to say, like, fuck it all, let
Yeah.
it all burn, like, I can never ever get there. And I mean,
Yes.
I refer to it as my own quixotic faith in people.
I
Like,
love it.
I'm just tilting out these windmills all the
Get those
time. And just,
windmills. That's right.
yeah, I'm never going to stop tilting at the windmills. I'm just going to keep doing it because I have to believe, you know? So,
Yep. No, I'm AP, you gave me goosebumps there. That was great. You just gave me that was a nice little
ah,
inspirational ending. I love that.
nice, nice. Well, yeah. Well, we inspire each other, and it's like I'm really glad we set this up because it has been way too long since
Too
we like
long, dude. Way too long. Way too long.
we've both
It's
been doing stuff, and
it's honestly the only reason I think about bringing the podcast back is to have more excuses to talk to people like you and Saxon and these folks
yeah,
that I've you know, don't get to talk to as much anymore. But I'm
yeah.
glad we can still connect. So anytime, let me know. I'm always down for a conversation.
All right, man. Well, stay weird, and I know you will.
It's all we can do, man.
Yep. All right.
Take
Take care.
care.
Ooh.